News for South Mississippi. WLOX News Weekend.
Dark days are behind us. Tonight, a beachfront bonfire symbolizes our strength, our resilience, and our bright future. A concert for the coast. Toe-tapping music reminds us good times have returned to Mississippi shoreline. On this, the 10th anniversary of that monster storm, South Mississippians unite. We've proven there's life beyond Katrina. The world seemed so dark 10 years ago. We all felt so helpless. Katrina battered our neighborhoods with so much anger and so much fury. People wondered if we could ever recover. Tonight, all you have to do is look out your window. There's a bright light shining across South Mississippi. That light comes from beachfront bonfires sponsored by Harrison County supervisors. But it also comes from the people who made it their mission to rebuild what Katrina tore down. Tonight, we're covering celebrations across the coast that salute you, your neighbors, and your friends. We start our coverage with Karen Abernathy in Biloxi. She talks about the concert for the coast.
I'm here at MGM Park in Biloxi enjoying Concert for the Coast. Trombone Shorty has taken the stage. The crowd is really loving it here. You know, this has been a great night, a great way to celebrate. And of course, we're talking about celebrating the resiliency and the strength of the coast. I caught up with some of the fans out here earlier tonight. Dr. John brought the house down tonight at MGM Park and had everyone on their feet. It was a night of celebration, a tribute to the recovery and growth on the coast 10 years after Katrina.
Absolutely similar regrowth, and great way to commemorate it.
More than 1,500 showed up for the Katrina concert. The smaller than expected crowd came to have a good time.
I think it's super incredible that Dr. John and Trombone Shorty came out tonight. It's so great for them to come and support the Mississippi Gulf Coast, the 10-year anniversary of Katrina. We're so excited to boogie our pants off and just have a good time.
But they also came to remember how far the coast has come.
From my perspective, music is a great way for anybody to enjoy themselves. And Gulf Coast music, blues, this kind of music that comes from our area is special, and it helps kind of heal the wounds that we've had.
Hometown band Rusco Bandana kicked off the event, the first band to play at MGM Park. It was a special moment.
I think it's very important that we commemorate this time as more of a celebration in honor of everything that's happened and how we've grown on the coast.
If you're not here, you're really missing out.
And of course, he's right. You're definitely missing out if you're not here. It's a great concert. Again, everyone having a good time. And what a wonderful way to celebrate how far we've come since Katrina 10 years ago. Now back to you.
Tonight, the celebration turned somber as Pastor Christian remembers those 29 residents who died during Hurricane Katrina. Floating lanterns were released and sculptures were lit as a tribute to them. And before the memorial, there was a picnic at the park. As Mike Lacey reports, for some, it was a special reunion.
The celebration in Pass Christian was spread all over War Memorial Park. Individual families pulled up a blanket and enjoyed the late summer sun. Vendors filled the spaces and music filled the air all through the day. But the celebration was even more special for Tricia Taylor and her husband, Chris Taylor. She opened her home in DeLisle after Katrina to family, friends, and soon-to-be friends, some for up to a year after the storm.
All these people stayed at my house 10 years ago, and I didn't want to have the party at my house this year.
The tent was filled with memorabilia to remind them of the hard days after the storm. Her brother-in-law, David Taylor, was one of the evacuees.
We felt like we needed to get together, some of us for the first time in 10 years. We needed to get together to celebrate this anniversary.
Dan Adabo of Atlanta has become extended family. The connection? J.D., his mother's dog. His mother, Norma Trimmer, tried to ride out the storm. J.D. made it, but she didn't. The person who found the dog? David Taylor.
We've come down every 5 years for the Hurricane Memorial. So it's a tough day, but you know what? We miss her. We We still have her dog, who reminds us a lot about her.
It was also a special day for Matt Daughtery, mayor of Belmar, New Jersey, who says he received invaluable help and guidance from Mayor Chipper McDermott on how to survive a storm.
We're about 3 years after Sandy, so it's nice to come to Pass Christian 10 years later and see, what the long-term recovery looks like.
In Pass Christian, Mike Lacey, WLOX News.
While War Memorial Park was severely damaged, it served as a staging point for people and resources while the city recovered. Long Beach had a special unveiling this afternoon in downtown. After 3 months of planning, the Long Beach Historical Society dedicated a new two-sided historical marker. About 25 people gathered near City Hall to see the new marker, co-sponsored by the Historical Society and Butch Austerlet Autoplex. The side facing Jeff Davis Avenue told the story of the destruction. The side facing east told the story of the recovery.
It's not the kind of thing that we like to be celebrating in so many ways, but since it has impacted our lives, it's very important.
Well, this is another day in our history and another day putting Hurricane Katrina, I hope, in the rearview mirror, but still to be able to recognize the achievements and the effort that was put on by our citizens and our nation to get us in a recovery state.
Hancock County residents gathered in Waveland this evening to remember the lives lost 10 years ago during Hurricane Katrina.
Stefano Bell,
George Kirkland,
Rosemary Hine, Edgar Bain Jr.
In that town, a total of 57 people died during the devastating storm. The anniversary ceremony was held at the site of the city's Ground Zero Museum. The observance also gave state, federal, and local leaders a chance to reflect on a decade of progress.
Today, for myself and many others, is a day that we close the book of a decade of struggling to recover from Katrina. I see a future that's bigger, better, brighter and stronger and more resilient than we ever were before. So thank you to the citizens that stayed here and for those of you who came back.
Hancock County's Pearlington community has come a long way since Katrina, but local leaders say there's still a lot left to do. The community celebrated its post-Katrina accomplishments this afternoon with gospel music, food, and fun for the children. It was also a chance to say thank you to the thousands of volunteers who helped the residents there rebuild their homes. The leader of a volunteer group out of Huntsville, Alabama, called Bricklayers, has sent nearly 1,000 workers to Pearlington over the past 10 years.
It's not about me. It's not about what we did in Pearlington. It's about God. God was the contractor who did all the rebuilding, and he orchestrated all of the trips. It's also about the volunteers who came. They came with their skills. They came with their tools. They came with their hearts open, and they came to be the hands and the feet of Jesus.
The city of Long Beach commemorated the Katrina anniversary this evening. First responders, employees, and residents all came together to reflect on the city's recovery over the past decade. They also honored all of the people and volunteers who have dedicated themselves to helping Long Beach rebuild.
Our first responders, the job they did, our employees and the many hats that they wore to get things accomplished. The volunteers from other cities and states, what they meant to us and meant to the coast, it would have been undoable without them.
One of the highlights of tonight's event was the debut of a new documentary called Soaring Ahead 10 Years After Katrina, a collaboration between the city and USM. A moving tribute to victims of Hurricane Katrina tonight, why nearly 24 beach bonfires are lighting up the night sky.
And while 10 years later we remember Hurricane Katrina, we talk also about how a storm in the Caribbean is falling apart. We'll have an update on that coming up.
The news for South Mississippi continues. WLOX News Weekend. Sponsored in high definition exclusively by Gardner Law Firm, the lawyer to call for bankruptcy and debt counseling.
A day that began with prayers for the lives lost during Hurricane Katrina 10 years ago ends with a special tribute to the victims. Tyler Bolden joins us from Pass Christian to explain.
Resilience, perseverance, and love are the main characteristics of this commendable rebuild. We've seen it every place here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. The Harrison County Board of Supervisors, along with mayors from several cities, have all 22 of the Harrison County bonfire pits lit up to remember the lives lost and thank everyone involved in the rebuilding of the coast. It really could not have been a much more perfect night. Maybe we could have done without some of the clouds, that way everyone could see the full moon more often. But I think we'll take what we can get. It's tough to believe that something so devastating happened 10 years ago, but everyone I've talked to tonight are happy to be alongside their neighbors. The bonfires have been a chance for family and friends to come together and another chance to remind themselves just how happy they are to be alongside one another. In Pass Christian, I'm Tyler Bolden, WLOX News.
Beautiful event there. It was a reunion of sorts in D'Iberville today. Dozens of volunteers who were here after the storm came back this week to see how far D'Iberville has come since they left. The site was Rudy Moran Park. The date was 10 years after Katrina came ashore. City leaders and volunteers gathered at the place where thousands of people from all over the world came to help rebuild the coast.
What do the volunteers mean for D'Iberville's recovery?
They mean everything. Literally, this city would not have come back had it not been for the volunteers.
Irene McIntosh helped organize the reunion. All these years later, she has stayed in contact with many of the volunteers who came to this very place and slept in tents just to help the people of D'Iberville rebuild.
We were family here. When they would get out of their vans or off their buses or however they came into the camp, Ed and I were ready. We were there with hugs, smiles.
Volunteers traveled all the way from the east and west coast. Many of those volunteers have since been back and had a chance to not only see the rebuilding efforts, but stay in touch with the people they met along the way.
It looks like a completely different place to me now. It just looks great. It looks fantastic.
When I look at what was done and how well it was done, it was just such an honor to be able to do it. And what we got out of it when we went home was that it wasn't so much what we did for the people here, but what they did for us.
During the ceremony, city leaders dedicated a plaque to the citizens and volunteers for their dedication and commitment to D'Iberville.
I think that was great. I'm so glad that they did that. There was a lot of people that helped from this town as well as other towns, but it was just a great experience, and that plaque is just gorgeous.
Irene McIntosh says she would like to see a museum placed inside the park's clubhouse to remember that this park will forever be what she considers hallowed ground. As we go, a look at church bells ringing at 9:30 this morning, exactly 10 years after Hurricane Katrina made landfall. The city of Biloxi marked the 10-year anniversary of Hurricane Katrina with a special service at its new ballpark today. Gospel spirituals echoed throughout the MGM ballpark for the 10th anniversary service. Locals and state leaders joined several community members in honoring the lives lost and celebrating the rebirth of the coast. Former Governor Haley Barbour spoke at today's event and got a standing ovation as he walked to the podium.
The first responders, the local officials, we never lost civil order anywhere in Mississippi, even though we bore the brunt of the hurricane. The volunteers that came and worked, the work of our congressional delegation, which was fantastic. President Bush was here yesterday. He bent over backwards, leaned forward, and everything else. Every time there was a decision, he did the most the law allowed for us.
Governor Barbour was also in Gulfport today. He told the crowd at Barksdale Pavilion he was thrilled the final event he planned was a faith-based service titled 10 Years, 10,000 Reasons. More than 200 people attended the worship service. They sang, they reminisced, and they celebrated the role prayer played in Mississippi's recovery.
Joy. And I was glad to see that first day that Gail and I were down here, amid the tears. And amidst all the hugs and heartaches and destruction, the smiles of people who were already optimistic and who were already trying to follow the scripture as much as they could and be joyful about the situation they were placed in.
New Bethel Missionary Baptist Church in Biloxi joined with other congregations from the area for a day of reflection, prayer, and praise. An offering was also collected to benefit families who are still struggling to recover from the effects of the storm. When it comes to our weather, what a difference a decade makes. Andrew Wilson tells us what to expect for the rest of the weekend when we come back.
Now, the weather for South Mississippi with meteorologist Andrew Wilson.
Well, a lot of things have changed towards the tropics over the last 24 hours. 24 hours ago, we were talking about Tropical Storm Erica making its way just along the east coast of Cuba. That storm has fallen apart, and as of this morning, the National Hurricane Center released a statement saying that it was just an area of low pressure, but it does have a chance of redeveloping. So we're going to keep a close eye on it. 20% chance of redevelopment over the next 48 hours, a 30% chance over the next 5 days. But we're really not too worried about it here, thanks to a lot in the way of shear over towards the Gulf. It's all associated with an upper level low pressure. That spin that you're seeing right over the Gulfport area, that's an upper level low. With that, we get a lot of shear right here on the east side of it. You kind of see how everything's streaming up towards the north. That's going to help keep this storm torn apart and from being an issue for us. A second thing that will keep it from being an issue is all that dry air right along there. Now remember, Danny got Tropical Storm Danny, that was what we were talking about 2 weeks ago, got torn apart by shear as well. So that's been very helpful for us this year as far as the tropics are concerned. We are watching one more place just off the south of the Cape Verde Islands. It has a 70% chance of development, actually an 80% chance now over the next 48 hours and a 90% chance of development over the next 5 days. So we're keeping a close eye on that. Still very, very far away from us though. So right now, we're not expecting any issues here for South Mississippi. Checking out on the radar, not seeing anything in the way of rainfall. We do have some over towards Alabama, but that's not going to be really an issue for us tonight. Just give us a bit in the way of cloud cover. Temperatures out there sitting in the 70s and some are still in the 80s, but everybody will get cooled down to the lower 70s tonight. Some areas even getting down to the upper 60s. But it is going to start getting more humid over the next several days. More humid, more warm. We're going to start seeing those more summer-like conditions, and with that, we're going to start to have more chances for afternoon pop-up showers and storms. Now, tomorrow morning, not really expecting anything, but around 3 p.m., we may see a pop-up shower here and there. If you do see a shower, it will be short-lived, and that'll be the story really over the next couple of days until we start heading into the middle of next week. For tomorrow's forecast, expect those temperatures to rise into the mid to upper 80s. Even may see a few areas that hit up to 90 degrees, especially for areas that will be further inland. So we'll be watching that. Once again, you may see a shower or two. I think the better chance for rain will be for areas of George and Jackson counties. And then, of course, going into the 7-day forecast, showing us that we'll see just a 20% chance of rain over the next few days. We start moving into the 30% chance for rain on Thursday all the way through Saturday. That's when we start to get more moisture into the area. It gets more humid, and we even see the warmer temperatures. So the cooler weather has been nice here for this past week. We had that cold front come through, help dry things down, cool things down. Got some really pretty weather for a while, but unfortunately, it's just not going to stick around. We got to wait a bit longer till fall's here.
So. Oh gosh, when do you think that'll be, Andrew? I need your prediction.
I could only hope that it's here tomorrow, but
right.
It won't be.
Thanks, Andrew. Now, we're going to check in with our Law Call folks to see what's coming up on tonight's show.
Hey, Carrie, we have a very special WLOX Law Call that's just minutes away with your legal phone calls live on the air. Good evening, I'm Ken Flanagan.
And I'm Matthew Medier. Tonight on Law Call, we of course are going to talk about Hurricane Katrina.
Yes.
We're going to talk about the lessons learned or perhaps not learned from that storm. You know, this is a defining, event of our generation.
Changed everything.
Absolutely. Legally, personally, everything.
Right.
So tonight we're going to talk about it legally, but so if you have questions about a lawsuit or anything related to the storm or comments about the storm, give us a call. We'll take your legal questions live on the air.
Yeah, we're honored to be the last live show on talking about Katrina for this Memorial weekend. Our phone lines are almost open, 896-0713 or toll-free 1-800-349-0713. We'll see you right after the news on WLOX ABC. For Law Call.
The sunshine beaming down on East Biloxi today inspired the members of Coastal Women for Change. They spent the morning in the community garden adjacent to John Henry Beck Park. They dug up the dirt and planted new vegetables in the Division Street garden. Coastal Women for Change chose Katrina's anniversary for this philanthropic project to remind neighbors the roots in this community are strong. That's all for the news at 10. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for Law Call on ABC.